afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is Tracy Miller, your captain, speaking. On behalf of the North Central West Virginia Business Summit and Bridges Without Boundaries crew, let me welcome you aboard our West Virginia Aerospace Panel presentation. If you haven't flown with us before, let me share with you a little bit about our aviation, aerospace, and space successes of a long history including Spruce grown in West Virginia, was used to build the frames in the Wright brothers' first flying machine. General Chuck Yeager was the first person to break the sound barrier. And of course, the Rocket Boy started in Coalwood, West Virginia. West Virginia has 32 public airports, 7 with commercial service. And I would like to thank our Aeronautics Commissioner for the Department of Transportation, Ms. Susan Chernenko, if you'd stand please, for being with us today. In a study completed in 2014 for the North Central West Virginia Airport, our regional economic impact in just this area is how much, Mr. Rickrock? $1 billion. So I want to thank Rick Rock, the North Central West Virginia Airport Director, for being here and also for sponsoring this panel. I also want to welcome another one of our industries. We have a brand new general manager that's just moved here from Texas, Mr. Drew Brooks, and his Lockheed Martin table in the back, if you all wouldn't mind. And I also want to give a shout out to the amazing FAA certified training and specialized training centers that we have here in West Virginia. Dr. Larson with Pierpont, Dr. Rose with Fairmont, Charlotte Weber with RCBI. Right now, I will hand the session over to our moderator, Mr. Greg Blaney. He is the Director and Program Manager for the NASA IB&B facility located right here at this tech park. Greg will tell you a little bit more about himself and introduce the rest of the panel. Thank you for flying with us today. We've turned on the seatbelt light. Please sit back and enjoy the ride.
Good morning. Thanks for having me. So we're just not going to fly. We're going to launch. Okay. So NASA, we do a little flying, we do launch as well. So NASA is not dead. Just got back from Ogden, Utah, where ATK tested out their new solid rocket booster, where we added a 5th segment to the solid rocket booster we used to launch the shuttle with. We now have 3.6 million pounds of thrust on each solid rocket booster. So we're ready to go back to space. So we're going to use that concept. I'm going to rapid fire these guys, let them introduce their businesses a little bit, introduce themselves. And we're going to rapid fire some questions at them and see if we can get some information out and save a little time for you folks to ask any questions as well. So NASA's independent verification and validation, that's a long word for saying we do life cycle analysis on software. All of NASA's most critical software systems that we fly. And there's lots of missions. The new multi-purpose crew vehicle that we're going to take astronauts to space with, the launch system, the ground systems, JWST, the new space telescope, all the science missions, NOAA JPSS satellites, GOES-R. We're doing software assurance for all those missions. We're also helping our commercial crew partners. We're also doing software assurance on the unmanned space vehicles, airplanes, drones that are being developed and tested down at Dryden. And one of the things that we focus on is education outreach. So I'm gonna ping these guys about how they're motivating and inspiring the next generation, so that next generation can sit here years from now doing work for us. So I'm just going to have each one of them just briefly introduce yourself and your company a little bit, and we'll start with Chad.
Okay. Good morning. My name is Chad Hill. I work with Bombardier Aerospace North Central West Virginia Airport. My background is actually I'm a local student here from Fairmont State. Graduated in 96 from the college up at the airport with a 4-year degree in aviation management. I was fortunate right at graduation to get on with Bombardier. I've been with them since 96. And through the years, I've held pretty much every position in the organization. I'm now the director of operations up there. The facility has me as the director, and we have a general manager, Stephen McCoy, on site. So we have a facility of about 380 employees currently today, with a lot of growth potential in the future. Our core business is scheduled maintenance and modification for the regional airlines. So on any given day, if you come in our hangar, we have anywhere from 8 to 12 regional airline, 50 to 90 passenger aircraft in there, in various states of disassembly for inspection and modification. On a yearly basis, we put through somewhere between 500 and 600,000 man-hours of maintenance on the aircraft. So I'm sure we'll have an opportunity here to talk about growth on some future questions, but that's the core of our business, is maintenance and modification for regional airlines. Thank you.
Good morning. My name's Craig Walker. Looking at the panel, I can see why I was invited. They needed some age, and I don't see any other white hair, so I was a senior member of the panel, I guess. I'm with FCX Systems in Morgantown. We manufacture ground power support equipment as well as provide engineering solutions for frequency conversion. All of our operations are based in Morgantown. We've got an operation with about 65 employees, but we're very proud of the fact that we have our equipment in over 70 countries and on every continent in the world, and we're proud of that coming from north central West Virginia. When I first came with the company, I questioned the Antarctica, as probably you all might be as well, but we actually service a science weather center there as well, so we're in Antarctica. But what we do is basically when the planes are on the ground, we support them, whether it's at the gate. If it's a commercial flight, you're sitting at the gate waiting for your plane to take off, and right before it taxis back, you see that little flicker of lights. They have taken off our power and put on the APUs of the plane itself. So on a commercial flight, we power the planes at the gate. We do an awful lot of military work. We've provided equipment for all the different branches of the military, as well as some of the major OEMs. I understand we have a Lockheed group back there. We've done quite a bit of work for Lockheed Martin. Again, we're proud to say our units are on the F-35 assembly line in our Fort Worth facility. But anywhere in the world where there's an issue of converting power from, say, 50 hertz to 60 hertz, that's what we provide. And the thing that sets our company apart from some of our very large competitors is we are very, very strongly engineering based. And again, proud to be in north central West Virginia and looking forward to discussion and questions.
Thanks, Greg. I know I really appreciate you guys when I'm sitting on that tarmac waiting to take off and that cool air is blowing on us. Without that, we wouldn't have it. So. That's
exactly true.
Well, good morning. I'm Tom Ryan, and I work at Pratt & Whitney. Pratt & Whitney has been at the airport since the early 1970s. It started out with 12 people. And you want to talk about growth? We've got over 400 folks now over there at that facility. We've gone through 3 or 4 big expansions over that period of time. I'm happy to be here. I've been in West Virginia for 17 years, and as I listened to the first panel, I could reflect everyone's sentiments about moving to West Virginia. In fact, every couple of weeks we have visitors from our headquarters in Montreal. They come down, they love coming to West Virginia. You go from an urban environment, high-paced, very stressful, and they come down into West Virginia. They love coming into this environment and working with our folks over there. Pratt & Whitney, what do? We overhaul and repair jet engines, whether small engines that could fit on the size of this table or large engines that are almost as big as that sign up there. Every year we put out between 500 and 700 engines out of that facility. Each one of these overhauls ranges between $250,000 up to $1.5 million. So there's a lot of money flowing through that facility, and it's high-tech, high-precision work, and it has to be done correctly and accurately every single time. So we have a very strong workforce. They're very motivated. They're excellent mechanics, and it's our logo, our motto, of course, is dependable engines. And so if you ask me, how do we motivate folks? Really, we just bring them into our facility, and we bring college students, high school students into our facility quite a bit for tours. And boy, I'll tell you, they get excited when they see a Pratt & Whitney engine all in pieces and they see it coming back together and they see it being tested. It's quite a scene. Thank you.
Good. So Greg, you're not the only old timer. My daughter actually has been a babysitter for his kids. So. Tells you the generation differences here.
Well, great. Good morning. My name is Eric Thompson. I'm with Aurora Flight Sciences. I apologize for my congestion right off the bat, but I'm also not a local here, but I am a graduate of WVU, and I haven't left. I graduated in 2005 from WVU with an engineering degree, and I started with Aurora right out of grad school in 2006. And it's really exciting times to be part of the global aerospace industry. Company-wide, we do a lot of things from unmanned aerial systems to space systems and flight development. But here in West Virginia, we've developed a niche for designing and manufacturing complex precision aerospace structures. For many years, we were known for being a major supplier to Northrop Grumman on their high-altitude, long-endurance platform, which is known as Global Hawk. Many of you know that aircraft. But recently, we've taken a major step in the world of vertical takeoff and landing aircraft, basically helicopters and unmanned helicopters. So we're now a major supplier to Sikorsky on their CH-53K marine heavy lift helicopter. We're also a major supplier for the new S-97 Raider helicopter, and on the commercial side to Bell on their new 525 Relentless platform. Along with that type of commercial work, Aurora does develop its own aircraft. You may have recently seen this in the news for the Orion. That's Aurora's own designed and manufactured entire aircraft system, everything from the flight controls to all the structure. And that recently just broke the world record for endurance by flying 80 hours. So there's a huge market for the unmanned aerial systems, and we're proud to be part of that. So, how do we motivate our workforce? We believe that our employees are exposed to some of those cutting-edge products and technology in the industry, and through relationships with Tracy and the MAC and local colleges and universities and programs such as STEM and Design, Build, and Fly and various robotics competitions. And we hope that we're part of inspiring the future leaders of tomorrow. So that's what we do.
Okay, thank you. So Chad, tell us, what do you see needs to be improved in the local area to help your business? What could we do?
Well, the local area in this region is very strong for aviation to begin with. I think the infrastructure is there. Probably the biggest thing that we see is the lack of communication about what we do at North Central West Virginia Regional Airport. It's a huge employer if you look at the airport as a whole. Over 1,000 employees, and there's a lot of growth. I know right now we're in a position where our company is starting to grow. We're having another rapid expansion where over the next 3 to 5 years we may be employing up to 300 more people. To find those people locally is difficult enough, but when nobody even knows that type of work's available up there, it makes it even more difficult. So I think one hurdle that needs to be really taken head on over the next few years is letting people know what goes on at the airport, what aviation opportunities are in West Virginia, and where you can get the education to get involved.
Good point. To be honest, I talk to a lot of people and I go to schools and people say, there's NASA in West Virginia. I mean, we've been here 20 years and they still don't know it, so communication is good. Tom, what are some of the major challenges or barriers for your companies dealing with?
I think for Pratt & Whitney, we're tied to the aircraft industry as a whole and aviation as a whole. So we go through cycles just like any other business. So when I look back over the last 15, 20 years, we've introduced a wide range of different products and services within Pratt & Whitney, all the way from tiny engines to the large engines, the turbofans to the turboprops. So we have to maintain flexibility in our business. We have to have the ability to reach back and do work that we did 15 or 20 years ago when times are kind of flat on some of the newer products. So that's a big challenge for our facility. We have to have a workforce that knows how to work on a wide range of different products, Pratt & Whitney products. We need machinists and mechanics and engine testers who are mobile, who can learn a lot throughout the entire value stream of our shop. And it's really hard because you know, like I said earlier, you can't make mistakes on aircraft engines. They have to fly and work perfectly 100% of the time. So that's probably the biggest challenge we face is the diversity of our model mix, and being able to reach back and pull in work that we thought we were going to let go 15 years ago, for example, on the PT6 models, so that we could make room for some of the more advanced models like the PW300 or the PW800. So, you know, that's the way we accomplish work through that challenge is we're constantly rotating folks throughout the shop and giving them the opportunity to learn new skills. A guy will work over in our machine shop for 2 or 3 years, and then we'll rotate him into an assembly function and then into a testing function. And we do a lot of training, obviously, and we have to rely upon just the goodwill and the flexibility of a workforce to you know, just to commit to that flexibility, so they don't get stuck in one area for 10 or 15 or 20 years.
Okay, thanks. So Craig, do you guys have access to a steady workforce potential?
That's a good question, but a quick answer from the professional side, the engineering side, which is the core of our business. Having Fairmont State, Pierpont, WVU nearby, we have great access to engineering students. Where we desperately need help is in the more the vocational side, particularly wiring assembly is a key component of what we do and what we build. In finding good wiring assemblers that want to work hard and have a good background is very impossible for 2 reasons. One, just those skills aren't taught anymore. I don't know about you all, but again, people my age, we went to shop when we were in junior high and high school, and you learn some basic skills. They don't have shop anymore. There's not vocational skills anymore, and we lack that. So I'd like to see even on the middle school area where vocation is more of a focus. Everybody's not going to go to college, but give those kids an opportunity to look at that. But that's the case, and quite honestly, we have issues with drug testing. Get in a workforce that could pass drug tests. We're fortunate and proud. We've got over roughly 20% of our employees are veterans. And they're a great fit for us because a number of veterans have used our equipment out in the field. But it's that wiring assembly and the middle workforce that's very hard to get work for. And that's what I think this whole area suffers from, quite honestly.
Okay, good. So me being a government employee, work for NASA, we take education outreach very seriously. Actually, the agency has an approach to growing our next generation. So we don't have a lot of funds, so we set aside a little bit of funds. We have a grant with Fairmont State University for a couple of teachers. We go out and do teacher workshops. We train teachers to take NASA engineering and science data out to the students. We have student workshops where we did 100 teacher workshops. That reaches about 1,000 teachers a year. 75 student workshops reaches over 1,000 students per year. We're involved with the first robotics. A couple of years ago, we got involved. There was one tournament. Last year, there were 5 scrimmages leading up to the final tournament. Next year, there's going to be some kickoffs, 5 scrimmages, 5 tournament events, and then a state championship. It's growing like crazy. We believe it's very, very important to get hands-on. When I look to hire somebody, I want a fresh out. I want them capable, intelligent, smart, and experienced. So how do you get experience and be a fresh out? I think it's through internships. They need to have a skill coming to the table. So, you know, I'm begging you educators to get involved. Provide those hands-on opportunities for your students. Go work with these gentlemen or with NASA or the government, find a way to get your students through an academic program into those where they get their hands on, they get motivated. So I'm going to ask you guys, we'll start with you, Eric. How are you reaching out and motivating these middle school kids? I think high school's is okay, but it might be a little late. But into those middle school kids, how are you doing anything? Is your company doing anything to reach out to them and motivate them?
Yeah, I mean, and I think it's a great point. It's really important. A skilled workforce is really the key to success, and we have a very skilled workforce, but how do you continue to develop that? At Aurora, what we like to do is, as I mentioned, we're involved in in a number of different programs. There's various robotics programs that are in the schools now. It's part of our culture to go sponsor those, whether it's local or within the region. But like I said, also internships. Getting people involved at an early phase. We're not afraid to take on an intern that's. I know you mentioned the middle school level, but a freshman in college, somebody that doesn't have any experience, to really grow them by putting them onto the shop floor and working with other engineers. We also do a lot of things as far as it's only one day a year, but take our daughters and sons to work day. Aurora's a big advocate for having students come in not just to walk around with their parents and look at things, but get them experience, let them build something, let them work with some of our technicians. It's amazing the kids that love to come and lay down one piece of carbon fiber. Everybody hears about carbon fiber and how cool it is. So when we bring students in, if the time allows, we let them work on a part, cure it, cook it, and then take it home with them. So it's something that they have physically in their hands, and they're going to take it to school and show their friends, and really get everybody more involved.
Okay, Craig, how about you guys?
We've had opportunities to have middle school and grade school kids into the facility, and as Eric mentioned, very interactive experience, which helps to get them aware of what's out there and so forth. As they get older, obviously interns are a huge program for us. As well as we've had the benefit of having some engineering classes come and do their final class project in our facility to involve that way. So that all those have helped, certainly.
Good. Chad, you good?
So we utilize a lot of the same stuff. We have internships that we rely heavily on. Our human resources departments also get out into the local middle schools to put on some presentations and get people interested in aviation. But some programs that we use that have really been beneficial for us over the last several years, you can imagine with an aircraft being in for heavy inspection, one of the big jobs that we have to do is get the aircraft access. So there's hundreds and hundreds of inspection panels that have to be removed. So we call that opening and closing the aircraft, getting it opened up for inspection. So we'll actually go out into the community and get unemployed and underemployed local citizens. It's a basic skill set to take the panels on and off. We'll give them basic training to understand the aircraft paperwork, how to document the work that they've done. And we bring them in as what we call open-close technicians. And they start with the basic functions of just taking panels on and off the aircraft. And over the last 8 years that program has been in development or been in operation, we've actually seen some of the original groups that we've brought into the facility develop into leaders. So we have crew chiefs and supervisors that have went on to get their A&P license and developed into a leadership role. So that's been a very successful program for us. Another program that we rely heavily on in our core business of inspection and modification of the aircraft, we deal with a lot of corrosion. Aluminum structures tend to corrode when they're in service. So we have a specialty skill for sheet metal, where guys can come in and remove specific components of the aircraft and replace them to make the structure sound before the aircraft leaves. It's a dying art. There's not, when you get out into recruiting and you get into the industry, you can find a lot of people in aviation, but you can't find a lot of people that have that specific skill set. So we were fortunate enough about 2 years ago to partner with Pierpont and the state actually to develop a training course specific for sheet metal skill set. So I think we've had about 4 classes so far, the 5th's coming up. And it runs about 12 to 13 people a class, and we've been able to employ everyone that's came out of those classes. So that's been a valuable asset for us, because that's sheet metal skill set's a big void, and that's provided an avenue to get local talent and fill that void with it. So.
Okay. One thing that the High-Tech Consortium Foundation does, Jim Eastep and the team, they do a day in the park, and they have a lot of businesses come in, and we bring in, we used to bus in like 1,500 7th graders from all over the state. And local businesses, we kind of try to motivate and inspire them. In NASA, we try to bring in astronauts and things like that, and invite these students to come. But what we're seeing is the budgets, the school budgets, not wanting to bus people in. We're seeing a reluctance of them actually participating. So, Tom, are you seeing any barriers to reaching out to these young people in your organization?
We're frequently invited to send folks out into schools, middle schools, high schools. I'd say 4 or 5 times a year we're getting invites to go and do some sort of presentation in one of the surrounding counties. Every once in a while we'll have a larger gathering. I think our HR folks are involved in some of the larger ones where we have multi-schools. In fact, I think there's one this month, and Tracy helped connect us with that, Tracy Miller. But we have the whole range, just like Chad was speaking to. We work with the high school students, getting them interested in aviation. We help connect them into the school, the A&P Mechanic School with Tom Stowe's. We run student internships. We have tours. WVU comes down, Fairmount State comes down fairly regularly to understand what a gas turbine engine looks like from the inside out. I haven't seen any restrictions from a budgetary standpoint on that side. It seems like there's a constant flow of folks who are interested in aviation. I will say that if you go back 30 years, it was not difficult to find a large group of eligible mechanics who had real hands-on skills. But times have changed. We're in a very digital age, information age, and a lot of the kids coming through, they've physically have never picked up a tool or a wrench and applied it to an actual object, whether it's an automobile or a tractor or a four-wheeler. And that's a significant shift in our culture that we need to keep an eye on. Over the next several years, we're going to have 30 to 40 retirements at Pratt & Whitney. So that bodes well for the next generation of employees, but many of them, unfortunately, are going to come in with very limited mechanical skills, and we have to be ready for that. Now, on the flip side of things, they'll be coming in with a whole new set of skills, information type skills, technical skills that some of our previous generations did not have. So obviously there will be a win there, and time will tell.
Okay, thanks. So we've talked about a couple things here. One was this trained workforce. I mean, there's a lot of emphasis about trained workforce experience. Now, I don't want to say that just because they're coming fresh out of school and they don't have any training, that there's not opportunities. But it is better if you have some experience turning those wrenches, or you've done some internships or so forth. So we're looking for that hands-on opportunity. And I heard a lot about communication. Communicating out what those opportunities are. So what other questions do you guys have for this panel or suggestions on what could be done better? Just shout it out and I'll try to repeat it for the rest of the folks. Do you have any questions for this panel? Okay, yes ma'am.
Testing. My question pertains to the employer-educator relationship. Whose responsibility is it? Is it the education community to reach out to the business community to understand the needs? Is it the employer's responsibility to, I'm not sure who had mentioned the program that they have on PeerPoint, I think it was, regarding the sheet metal class. Chad, I think that was you. Excellent example. how'd that start? Whose responsibility is it? Because we hear a lot about all of these different skills lacking. Any advice you can give?
So responsibility is a tough word. I think it comes down to who needs it the most at the point. We're fortunate in the fact that we have a very close relationship with Tom and the school over there. I'm actually a graduate from over there, so we keep a very close relationship. I think the development of that program was driven by a need on our end, but very receptive from them when we talked to them about it. So, if the employer is the one that has the void to fill, the responsibility is really going to be down to the employer to get out in the education community and say, this is what we need. This is the void we need to fill.
In our application, we look at it as a pure win-win situation. So we try to be fairly proactive and reach out, because you look at an internship situation, great opportunity for the intern to learn, and for us, great opportunity to get a young mind at, quite honestly, a reduced wage that can learn and hopefully grow into a full-time position with us. So I think it's shared, but we try to be more proactive to reach out to those.
We've been quite proactive here in the last few years as well, reaching out to help our salary workforce. 30 years ago, when we began our hiring practices, a lot of our folks did not have college degrees, neither an associate's or a 4-year bachelor's degree, let alone a master's degree. That's significantly changed in the last 10 years. So in order to continue rising up in the company and to have, you really need to have at least an associate's degree and preferably a bachelor's degree. We reached out to Fairmount State at Pierpont a few years ago, and they helped us customize our Regents program. We're also reached out to the WVU campus, and they're hosting an executive MBA on site. So it's a constant challenge. We're just kind of making up for the lost time from 20 years ago, but you have to keep chipping away at this and keep an eye on the future.
So I think it's a really good question, and it's kind of twofold. So we're always able, there's an intense competition to always secure new work and be recruiting for top engineers and technicians, but there's only so many of them. So it's really about exposure, I believe. A couple people have talked about it, maybe on this panel and the previous one, but we're constantly surprised by the visitors that come through our site that are local from these surrounding communities and say, wow, we can't believe that you guys build airplanes right here, or you guys build helicopters. We didn't even know you were here. I think it's about raising that awareness at a young age. We have a great industry. West Virginia, we're known as the coal mining state, but we do a lot more than that. And this is a perfect example of all of us, what we're doing in this community. And I think it's really just about raising that awareness. It's tough for us to go find senior level folks and very specialized folks because they just see West Virginia and they think kind of blue collar workers. That's what they do. And if they want to do anything else, they're looking at the Everett, Seattle, Washington area, or Boeing in Charleston. They're looking at those big metropolitan areas. But if we start to give that exposure to our students at a young age, they can be thinking about that. Hey, I want to go learn, science and math and engineering, and I can stay right here and do that. So I think that's a really important thing, is just continuing to drive that exposure of the high technology that we have right here.
Yeah, I'll just complete that question. I think it's a dual responsibility. I think it's a responsibility for every organization to provide those opportunities. I think it's the school's responsibility to expose the kids to those opportunities. What I'm seeing missing is maybe an opportunity for someone to start a small business, or even a website linking those two together. Maybe the Chamber of Commerce could get together and go out to these businesses and say, what are your opportunities, and put them on a website. NASA has a website for internships for all over the whole agency. You can go to one website and apply for an internship at any NASA center, including ours. However, if the students aren't exposed to that or aren't aware of that, they don't see it, or if they don't go out and research it. So you know how kids are. My son had all the capability. He's a COO of a home builder down in Northern Virginia. But boy, when he was in high school, I said, if he'd ever have some initiative or just go look. But when they're that age, it has to be pushed on by some administrator or some guidance counselor or something. So, just anybody, what's your growth potential coming up in the near future? You growing? Is there any economic growth potential that you see coming in your companies? Go ahead.
So we're very fortunate at Bombardier. We're located centrally on the Northeast Corridor, which is a mecca for aviation. You know, half the flights that happen every day in the U.S. are up and down that East Coast corridor. And aviation's sort of gone through a decentralization process right now where the major airlines are giving way to bring on regional airlines to provide service for them, which is good for our business. So we see our business potentially growing, doubling in the next 5 years. Right now, we're looking at opportunities for employment to be able to hire 300 people in 5 years. We're working on plans to be able to do that. The work is there. We've looked in our 10-year strategic planning model. The work is there. It's just a matter, can we have the facilities for it, and can we have the people to do the work? So there's huge growth potential if we can capture it.
I can second that. Chad mentioned the potential for growth and the opportunities. Right now, Aurora feels that they're very well positioned. We've gotten into the unmanned and the manned aerial systems, and as global threats continue to rise, there's always an increasing demand for unmanned aircraft, drones, if you will, to keep watch over hostile, unfriendly areas, foreign and domestic. And there's always a need for better, faster, more maneuverable platforms. So if we can figure out a way to get the capital and get the employees, our potential for expansion is huge. Aurora is also, with the current programs that we have, we're also looking to double over the next 3 to 4 years. So there's a potential to add a lot of jobs locally. We just have to figure out how to get there.
Our company is a little different from the colleagues here and the companies they represent. We're a small business, but even in that regard, I mentioned earlier, there's 5 companies that do what we do in the United States, and 3 of them are very large. But what makes us different, again, is we do things. If you want a power unit from Hobart, you call them, they go get it out of the factory shelf, and they deliver it. What we do are the things other people won't do, kind of like the old cereal commercial, give it to Mikey, he'll eat anything. We'll try to design and build things that are unique. And that's where we think our market is, because if you think what we do, we convert power. It doesn't have to be utility power to 400 hertz or utility power to 270. It can be wind power to utility power, however. So there's endless opportunities for us, but we've got to focus, where do we do that best? One area we think we could do very well is in shore power. We have some large units in the Bahamas that basically power a dry dock when the cruise ship comes in for repair. You can imagine when we commissioned those units, I had a long line out of my office on people volunteering to go and set up those units. But there's great opportunities in that regard. Even being a small company, our 3 to 5 year plan, and one of our bankers is in the room, so I want to make sure he hears us. Our 3 to 5 year plan is to go 2-3 times where we are right now. And what that is, and you mentioned about exposure and so forth, we're like that. Nobody in Morgantown, a lot of people in Morgantown don't know what we are or what we do, and we fight that even in the industry. But by being unique and providing that unique service, we think we can develop, and we're quoting one job in Qatar for a new port there. If that job comes, we're going to have to probably increase our staff by 40%, which again, substantial for us, and look for another facility to build these units in. So even on a small business, yes, there's opportunities, and if you're not growing, then you're not going to be around in another, we're in our 29th year, so if we don't grow, we're not going to be around for another 29 years. So it's incumbent we have to look at opportunities to grow.
I think to answer that question, I'll go back to the previous panel and how we ended that panel with this futuristic vision of greater storage capacity and speed, greater bandwidth, information. People want more and more and more information at their fingertips. And I think aviation is analogous. People historically have wanted to go faster and faster. They wanted to get places faster. It's no fun driving 2 or 3 hours to an airport and have to sit through lines. We really want to be able to pull up to a little airport in a little town of Bridgeport, Clarksburg, hop on a plane and get somewhere. And that's more of a kind of a philosophical answer to what's going on in aviation. Aviation will always be growing because human beings want to get places faster and faster. And I think that we're in a great position here at the airports to put all the pieces together. I mean, you look around the table, we have the potential to build an entire aircraft from the ground up in this community. We have all the knowledge, we have all the skills, we have the technical know-how. You look at Lockheed Martin and Aurora and RCBI and Bombardier. We have all of the ability to create an entire aircraft right here in central West Virginia.
Good. You guys get them from state to state. We'll get them from Florida to Mars. So, a couple things I've seen and heard, even from the first panel and this panel, is we have a great work ethic of people here in West Virginia. The costs are lower. I mean, Goddard Space Flight Center is like my mother's center. They came out and look at our facility and said, Greg, you're wasting too much money keeping this facility so nice. I said, really? Check my books. They closed the books and says, oh my, they went home. NOAA came out. They wanted some changes to our facility to move in. We said it would cost them $50,000. And the guy looked at me with shock. And I thought, well, that's not a lot. He goes, no. I'm looking in shock because in DC it would have cost me $400. Okay? So we have lower costs, great work ethic, great people, lots of capability, lots of cooperation. And actually I think it's good for people to move out and come back or come from New York City because they appreciate things so much. Nothing against Chad over here, but when you stay here and you've never left here, you're good, but you don't understand how bad it is out there sometimes. So it's good to go out and taste that world a little bit. I don't know why my son went to Northern Virginia, but he loves it. But anyway, what I'm hearing is continue the cooperation, and we really need communication. We need to communicate out what the opportunities are, get those people in, tell people what we're doing, and motivate them. Tracy?
Touching on what we're all talking about with expansion, with the future expansions, and just keeping up the existing workforce with retirements. One of the things that some of the bigger companies have done on a national level, and we're really bringing it home on a state level. I know Lockheed has it, Pratt has it, Bombardier has national initiatives on diversifying their workforce. And one of the things that the companies came together and said, as we're going to look at growing, and obviously, and you all even mentioned a couple of times in the presentation, guys, as you've tapped out on hiring guys over the last decades, what can we do to add some gals and any other diversification to the workforce? So one of the things that they've started is a new association called AWAM, and it's the Association of Women Aircraft Mechanics. And so we all know, I know if I walk in any of their facilities, I'm excited, but one of the things that Chad even mentioned to me just in a conversation is, you look at the clothes they wear, you look at the guys' toolboxes with the guys' stickers on them, and they are very aware of what we need to do, not to change the importance of the specific skill sets that have to be had, but to make it an environment that's more open to diversification. And I've heard from many levels, including a tour I just did with Chad last week, Rick Rock and I did it, how great the females that have gone through their programs are. So if any of you would like to just give a little update on what we're doing in our little state to try, as you all are growing and just looking at replacing even retirements, to work as a team to diversify our workforce?
So, as Tracy mentioned, we, Bombardier, probably about a year and a half ago, started to put a lot of emphasis on the diversification of the workforce. And what we found was a traditionally male-dominated industry, for the last 100 years. As we started to diversify it, we found that the actual work that we're doing, we're not working on bulldozers or dump trucks. It's light work. It's attention to detail and fine manipulation. And we found through the diversification that in most cases, the females make a better worker. It's designed, the work we're doing is really suited to their needs. So I think in the last year, we've probably brought in somewhere in the neighborhood of 10 females onto the workforce, and they've excelled. Tracy mentioned we had some discussions about making the environment prepared for diversification, and there was some struggle on the front side of it, but I think we've broken through that barrier. I think the workforce has seen and recognized the benefits and this whole untapped resource that we have now to go out and increase our employment levels. So it's really been a revelation for us as an employer, and it's really going to help us grow. It's going to help us grow tremendously.
Again, small company, I look at our key people in our company, and we try to bring the best person in, but our CFO is female, which is interesting. Our production lead person is female and has a better work ethic than anybody there. And we got great work ethics, but she ends up being a great example every day. So we try to look at it that way. Diversity is a challenge in our state, quite honestly, because I think the last I checked, we were probably 96% non-diverse. We're spoiled a little bit in Mon County because I think I saw a fact the other night. We have 92 languages in the Mon County schools. And I'm sure because of the university and the Med Center and Milan and a lot of other opportunities there. So we've got an opportunity to be a very diverse organization. We try to draw on that as best we can.
We've kind of approached it differently. It is a tough nut to crack, especially at the mechanical level, but I'm actually proud to say that half of our management team at Pratt & Whitney is female. And I think that sends a strong message to the community. It sends a strong message to newer employees and our salaried employees that they have opportunities all the way to the top. So we've kind of approached it from that angle. We've invested in our salary workforce, and then we hope that the time will come where the schools and the A&P schools and will be able to entice the more diversity at the entry level, the mechanical level.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, our vice president of operations is female, Chris Miller, who many of you know. So to Tracy's point, not only do we look at diversification and equality at the technician level, but also in management levels and in engineering. One of the things that we find is that being so close to West Virginia University, Pierpont, Fairmont State, that more and more we are seeing a lot of female engineers come out of those schools and working hand in hand with male engineers or anybody else. There's really no different. And I go back to, I think I've been using that keyword exposure, but it's giving the exposure that anybody can be part of this industry. It's not just your traditional thinking that it has to be a male workforce or anything else. So it's really just about finding new and innovative ways. We're very quick to come up with new technology and new ways for the products and for the stuff that we build. But I don't have an answer to this, but I propose the question: how do we come up with new and innovative ways to motivate the youth, whether you're male, female, of whatever race, it doesn't matter. How do we motivate them and show them that there's opportunity for everyone?
Yeah. What we see at NASA, our internship program, 50-50 gender. employees, we can't find females. Don't know why. If they go into engineering or software engineering, maybe they don't come back. Maybe they go on someplace else and get another job. But it's very hard for us. We recruit, or we're trying to recruit from those entities. We go up to there's a group up at WVU and in Fairmont and various places of women engineers, so we go to them and try to recruit and make sure that they're aware of our opportunities. But it's a struggle for us to get software engineering females or diversity. We have a couple hiring opportunities right now, and we've opened it up to almost to the world, trying to recruit people. Because we think diversity and inclusion is very, very important. Get those different experiences, those different backgrounds. It's very important to be successful. Is there any other questions from the audience? Do we have any volunteers to start that website about internships and opportunities? I think that, you got to put some pressure on the newspapers. I mean, I don't know about you, but, do you ever see those things on the news, the 11 o'clock news, if you stay up and watch it? This great event. It's like, why didn't I know about that beforehand? They're showing me the news that it happened. I wish I'd have known before it happened. So, no other questions, huh? So, guys, is there any follow-ups that you want to talk about? Anything that you guys want to get out on the street about what you're doing? Any challenges to any improvements you need to see from the colleges? Anything they could do better to provide that workforce for you? Is the housing, the politics, or I don't know if there are any politicians here or not, any policies that could be changed that... Go ahead, Tom.
Let me take a stab at this. And I know we'll talk about healthcare later this afternoon, but we can't overlook, we have to look beyond the technical piece of what it makes to run a good business. And we have to look at the whole person. Someone mentioned earlier that the drug use is on rise. It is, here in West Virginia. The pool of eligible employees, because of that, is shrinking. You have to pass some very strict DOT drug testing to get into aviation. And so I think we're concerned about that because there's fewer candidates out there coming into the pool. But beyond that, we also have to be looking at health and lifestyle, fitness. It's an aggressive environment at times. It can be stressful. People need to stay very alert and very focused to do their very best. There's no room for error in aviation. And to be able to work 8, 10, 12 hours a day, you need to be in good physical conditioning. So personally, I'm concerned about that as well. From a more of a cultural standpoint, how do we tackle that issue with our fitness and our health and the healthcare costs associated with that? So those are the two things that I would encourage all of us to consider. It's not just creating great minds, it's great bodies and great souls and great hearts that make up a good business.
I think the one biggest challenge, and West Virginia's always faced this area's always faced it, is letting people know and pat ourselves on the back what we have here. It's amazing when you have people that are from out of this area that come here. And you talk about the quality of life and things that are available here. We don't advertise enough, and we need to do a better job on that. I think, and I'm like Chad. I was born and raised here, born in Clarksburg, and been in Morgantown for 42 years, but I've had opportunities to go a lot of different places across the United States, but I always made the decision to stay here because of the quality of life. And I don't think we tell people that enough, to recruit new businesses and that in here. And you look out, it's rare that you can't look out, and you got to get uplifted when you see the trees in the fall and the spring and everything that's out there. You drive 5 miles, you're out by a lake, you can go out in the woods, and we don't advertise enough, and we need to let people know what West Virginia has.
That's a good point. Years ago, I came here in '96 from the D.C. area, got Aerospace license. I was actually born in Morgantown, raised in Pennsylvania, went away, came back, one of those. Came back in '96, and at the time, We have very powerful senator and congressman, very protective, and that is why the NASA IVMP program is here. We had the Challenger accident. Remember that tragedy where the space shuttle blew up? And they said they needed a program to look at NASA software. And NASA said, well, in order to do this, we need like $10 million to build a facility. And, you know, Robert Byrd said, okay, where are you going to put it? And NASA said, anywhere. And he said, okay, right there is anywhere, pointing to the Fairmont. That's why we are here. We take that very seriously. Now, I believe it's taken us 20 years to get past the politics. We are here because of politics. We are now here because of value. We bring value to the agency. We are doing important stuff. As an executive for the government, my team, my staff, it's their job to do excellent work, which they do. It's my job to tell the agency and everyone else about their excellent work. Take that value out to the world. So I think what I'm hearing here, it's very important that we get that knowledge out to people. It can be through the news, it can be through what we do, but if we want to continue to grow North Central West Virginia, and what I'm hearing a lot about cooperation as well, you know, brag on those other people, especially if they're not your competitors. You know, you guys all do a little bit of different stuff, you know, and I work with you just a little bit in different ways, but we are a team. And if we want to grow that next generation and continue to thrive here in North Central West Virginia, we have to cooperate.